The definitive Bulwark guide. Anything discussed will be timestamped in the description below. With a level 25 and all maxed out weapons, I'm going to share 3 distinct build styles with gameplay that I use throughout my over 60 operations with the class. All weapons will get a complete breakdown from their special abilities to the necessary perks to use and their combos. Overall strategies for the Bulwark, from when to correctly use your banner, utilizing your shield, and being the best defensive wall possible. Everything is geared to getting you through Ruthless as easy as you can, and all gameplay is in Ruthless to truly show how these builds perform. Our shield breakdown, the most important utility piece you have as the Bulwark. Now, the things you're seeing on the screen right here are really the only things that you have to worry about when you are using your shield, other than things that are behind you. If it's in front of you, these are the only things you need to worry about, which is a light enemy. When you get the parry animation on him, you cannot block that, so you have to parry it or dodge it. With the middle one you see there, that's a heavy enemy, and the parry animation from him, you can block that, but you get a pretty severe knockback and you will receive damage, usually if you have other enemies around you. And then the last one on the right there is a heavy enemy, a heavy attack, so if it's red anytime, you cannot block that with your shield, so you will have to dodge that as well. But other than that, you are literally blocking everything in the game. Heavy ranged attacks will also knock you back, but that is all you have to worry about at all. You can block everything, just keep it all in front of you, and we will go into a little bit of just some overall strategies that I picked up and just really showing you how strong this thing is. Now, you'll know you're blocking by the fisheye effect that happens on your screen. You notice it dims down, that means you're blocking. So you notice when you're sprinting, you're also blocking, that's why it dims down like that. Right here, you're really using your shield bash as well for easy gunshots on light enemies. You can roll right up on them with your shield out, and then you hit your melee right when you get to them, knock them back, get an easy armor segment from the gun strike. And right here, I'm not even really using my weapon at all. I'm just trying to show you exactly how strong that this shield is, and that you can really be an absolute tank and just grab aggro from everybody, sit back, let them hit you and eat up all the damage with your shield as your teammates do all of the damage for you. But obviously I don't like to play that way. I like to get in there with damage, but I'm just showing you that this is a very important tool and you need to have your shield out at all times. There's really no need to not have your shield out. Like I said, when you're sprinting, you're automatically blocking, so you already have it out then. And any other time you're not, you will be holding LB to block. It's that good. When you play other classes, you feel the loss of the shield because it's just so good at keeping you alive, and definitely with the ranged attacks and everything it can block from them, I think it's even stronger. Like, the banner is extremely strong. It's one of the best special abilities in the game, but with this, I think this is even stronger than the banner. I think this is his best tool that you can use as the Bulwark. So always use your shield. There's a lot of perks that you can synchronize with it and really make it stronger and even better than it already is. Just base, when you first get it, it's already godly, so it just gets more and more OP from there. So very important tool, guys. Always use your shield. As you see, the chapter banner is an extremely powerful utility for your team. As I said before, it restores armor to everybody in the area of effect, but there's a couple different ways that you can use this that makes it even stronger than that. Now, all of our classes on here, or all of our builds on here, have a perk that gives you contested health when you plant your banner, you and your squad mates, so your contested health will fill up, and then you could gain all your health back as well. And that is a very important way that you're going to want to use your banner. For example, right here, I know I can execute somebody, I plant down my banner, my contested health is full, I execute, and then I have full health. And then obviously anybody on your team can take advantage of that as well, as long as you're talking to them and kind of synchronize with them that, you know, you're getting ready to drop your banner and to do it. So very, very powerful way to use the banner. And then also, in a pinch, if you have a stim, you can plant the banner, get all your contested health filled up, and then use the stim, and with the patch, that now refills your health completely as well. So like I said, very good for your group, but there are a couple different ways you can utilize it, and very powerful ways, because getting your full health back like that is extremely helpful in Ruthless when the stims are pretty rare to come across. Alright, another unique thing to the Bulwark is the power sword. They're the only class that can use it. It is a strong weapon. It has the unique ability of having a power stance and a speed stance, and we will kind of go through when you want to use each one. Right here you can see it is in the speed stance, and then when you hold your melee button you will switch to the power stance. So your power stance is for large groups of enemies, and then your speed stance is for your single target damage. So you do a lot more single target with the speed, but it is much weaker against large groups of enemies. So you're going to want to switch your stances accordingly, which makes this sword unique and just a lot of fun, being able to switch your stances and different things like that. And then you have a lot of synchronizing perks that you're using with this sword. Check out my weapons section of this video to get the perks that you're going to want. And then you're going to want to end all of your combo, or all of your combos with this right here, which is the power rake. As you see, it shoots out and forward, and then you also have perks that makes that stronger as well. So anytime that you can, you will end in a power rake. Oh good, a lot of enemies. Oh, I didn't mean to plant that. So we will switch to the power stance, and then you will kind of see how this can really clear out a lot of people. Now I have my fencing version on, so my cleaving is not as high, so that's why I'm not killing a multiple, but this thing really has a lot of range to it, and is just super strong against almost everything in the game. I didn't think those guys were going to pop out. I'm glad they did. And when you get to single targets, you can kind of... Let me clear out a few more of these small guys. You get to your single targets like this guy over here, you can switch. Now, I mean, you're not going to be able to just like switch all the time, you know. You're going to be able to switch when you can switch, but it does a lot more damage when you are in the single, or when you are in the speed stance against these heavy enemies. It's nice to get them with the speed stance if you can. A good range with your diving and your sprinting attack. I'm not sure what they call it on this one. I'll look in a second. But as you see, this sword can really keep you alive. It's very strong. I think it's this and the hammer are the two best melee weapons in the game. And there we go. So that's how you're going to want to do it. You're going to want to be switching out of your styles because it just makes this class fun to play too. There are 3 must-have perks. You see them circled on the screen. The other ones are optional, but we'll break down why I chose what I did. And you're really just trying to concentrate your enemies within your shockwaves and taking advantage of your 25% extra damage. Let's move right into the core perks. Our first core perk that we take is Conviction. When your armor is fully depleted, you take 25% less health damage for 5 seconds. This has no cooldown. I think this is probably one of their best perks overall. I take it on all my builds across the board. Next we have Shock and Awe. Enemies in a shock area take 25% more damage, and then you're pairing that with Defensive Advantage. A perfectly timed parry creates a shock area for 5 seconds. Cooldown is 30 seconds. So this isn't as long as a shock grenade, but it take advantage of the 25% damage on that one. And also with this, you never want to have a blocking weapon because you cannot perfect parry with a blocking weapon, so this will not work at all. So do not take a blocking weapon when you're using that. Next up we have your team perk, Advanced Conditioning. Contested health fades 50% more slowly for all squad members. One of their strongest perks, one of the strongest team perks out there. Next up for our gear we have Focus Strength. Shield Bash knocks back enemies and makes them lose control for a longer period of time. This helps when you have larger enemies. Get them knocked back, extra time to concentrate on other things around you. Next up we have Invigorating Icon. When the banner is activated, all squad members regain maximum contested health. We'll talk about how to use your banner in general, but this is a very strong one, especially even for yourself, because how you use it is right when you see a enemy that is ready to be, when you're almost dead, you know, if you're under like 30% or less health, you look for an enemy that needs to be executed, and before you execute that enemy, you drop the banner right in front of them. Your contested health completely fills up the full bar. you execute them, and then you have full health. So that is really how you're using your banner with this character. Next up, we have Rejuvenating Effect. When the banner is activated, it revives incapacitated squad members within its area of effect. It is very strong on Ruthless. It's almost a must-have. It saves the group so many times. It's really hard to revive when you're on Ruthless and you have so many enemies around you. And lastly, for our last shock perk, we have Emergency Countermeasure. When your armor is depleted, a reserve shock grenade automatically detonates at your position. Cooldown is 120 seconds, so it's a free shock grenade every 120 seconds when you lose your armor. It is, like I said, you pair it with the 25% extra damage, and that is basically how this shock build works. As I said before, you're really concentrating everybody in your shockwaves and trying to take advantage of the 25%. And in between there, you're using your shield and using your parries to just kind of, wait until your next shockwave to really deal the mass amount of damage that you can. And just overall, you are just, you're still tanking and you're still holding aggro for your group and letting them do a bulk of the damage as well. Let's take a look at some shock build gameplay. As you see on the top left, this isn't Ruthless. I am using the Power Sword. You'll see the perks on the top right of the screen over there of what I'm running on this current setup we got going right here. So I'm just looking for mostly a high density type of area to run through and kind of show you what I'm thinking as I'm playing, and just the best way I found to play this build in general. It's really about trying to trap everything in your shockwaves as much as you can, and utilizing your perfect parries, kind of blocking and dodging until you really want to use that perfect parry for a good placement of your shockwave. Now, obviously, you're not always going to be able to do that, but that's really what you're trying to do. But sometimes, you're going to have the perfect parry when it's not an opportune time to drop your shockwave. But right there, I kind of stalled out a little bit and tried to get this big guy in it. And with the parrying, I would suggest never really taking a blocking weapon. With the perfect parrying now giving you armor no matter what, you're not really going to ever want to take a blocking weapon in this game until they're going to fix that. They're going to do something to make the blocking weapons more appealing. So as you see, just once you get them in the shock, they really get stuck. Their movement speed goes down a lot, and then you could really go through them pretty easily after that. It does a decent amount of damage. And then I'm not sure if your teammates take advantage of your 25% damage in the shockwaves, but maybe they do, I'm not sure. It does say damage, so your gun is also stronger in the shockwaves, not just melee damage. You got me right there. See, when it drops like a double shockwave like that, if you drop that at the right time when you got a bunch of people around you, yeah, it is really nice. Overall, I'm thinking this is probably the strongest build for the character. It's really good. You can survive a lot of stuff. The shockwave, when it drops, if it drops at the right time too, you can do a lot of damage. And not only can you do a lot of damage, but just it's stalling them out like that, you can get away for a second and figure out what's going on more around you and everything like that. So it has like a lot of different perks to it. And I know I have these two shock nades, but I'm saving them for later on because I wanted to do something for the video. So that is why I didn't use them. Because yeah, shock nades with this character are extremely powerful too, because obviously with that extra damage, you can't stand in it and use your melee, but it's extra damage with your pistol as well. So it's still very strong using the shock nades. This is going to be about the end of this part. And yeah, that's really how you are going through these operations with this character. It's a lot of fun if you enjoy the melee side of the game. I mean, this is definitely the character for you. And then you're dropping them shockwaves all over the place and just having a good time with it. And I think the Power Sword pairs best with it. I think the Power Sword is overall just his strongest melee weapon. So even for other builds that I go through where I'm using a different weapon, just to, you know, just to give people options and stuff like that of builds they can run with other weapons. Odds are if you put the power sword in place of the other weapon, it is probably going to be a overall stronger build because of just some of the perks that just check out the power sword section of this video and you'll see why the power sword is insane. And these guys never get up here. Let's see. I can find where I use these shock nades real fast, so I show you guys. I wasn't kidding you. Oh yeah, it's right up here. Now this is how strong these nades can be with this character, which you don't always have them, so it's not something you can really rely on. But right there's like 4 heavy enemies. Just throw them at the big group of them, and then you drop. You know, I dropped the shock nade right there on the perfect parry. Got that guy a little bit. These guys are stuck in it, and then really just start shooting them as fast as you can with as many headshots or wherever, honestly, because they're gonna go down. So that is definitely the way to use the shock nades. I think I come up on another pack of them right up here to where I'm able to. It's almost like deja vu. It's like basically the same thing happens. Oh, that boss is so the Hive Tyrant, man, so annoying. Hard boss, good for the game. I can't imagine what he's going to be like on the next difficulty. Oh yeah, and here's the other nade. Oh, and I was able to do the same thing with the parry, but I know this guy gets me somewhere. Somebody gets me right here. That shouldn't have. Make a mistake. Yep, right there. But yeah, you see, I mean, look at all 3 of them ready to execute off that shock nade. So, one of the best builds for this class, like hands down, right here. It's very strong. If anybody pairs any other different perks with this build and thinks it's stronger, I would love to hear about it in the comments, because I would love to try it out for myself and see if it is stronger, because I'll use it. So yeah, great build, have fun with it. We're going to move on to probably the tank class from here. You can't have a bulwark without a tank build. You can see circled on the screen the 3 must-take perks for this build. For this, we are really relying on our shield, deflecting range attacks back onto our enemies, and taking advantage of some of our survivability perks as well. Our first core, you want Conviction. When your armor is fully depleted, you take 25% less health damage for 5 seconds. Like I said, that is one that is very commonly used. Next up, Armor of Contempt. When you block a ranged attack, enemies within a 10-meter radius take the damage instead. So I'm assuming by this it is taking the full damage, so that is a lot of damage that you are deflecting on other enemies. Next up is Armor Reinforcement, another survivability perk. Non-finisher gun strikes also restore armor. It helps with the heavy enemies because you can get a few gun strikes on them before you actually get an execution. For your team perk, you still want Contested Health, fades 50% slowly for all squad members. That is advanced conditioning. Next up we have Focused Strength. Shield Bash knocks back enemies and makes them lose control for a longer period of time. As I said before, it opens up heavies and gets you gun strikes and all of that. Next up we have Invigorating Icon. When the battery is activated, all squad members regain maximum contested health. Rejuvenating Effect. When the banner is activated, it revives incapacitated squad members within its area of effect. Very strong on Ruthless, as I mentioned in the shock build. And for our last tank perk, we have Armored Advance. If you have armor remaining, you do not lose control upon taking heavy hits, and you cannot be knocked back. That is a very strong perk. So you are just immune to knockback and heavy hits as long as you have armor. As long as you are parrying and regaining your armor back, you do have armor quite often. So for the tank build, it is really about getting in there with your shield, using your shield bash, blocking all incoming attacks. Keeping everything in front of you is one of the main things with this build. Anytime you're feeling like you're getting surrounded, kind of try to dive out of there, get your bearings, get everything back in front of you. Get your shield out, run back in, and get back. Let's get into our tank build gameplay. You see on the top right, that is the weapon that I am pairing for this run that we have right here. Top left, you see that it is in Ruthless. let's get it started. So with this, you can pair, honestly, whatever weapon you feel most comfortable with is probably what you're going to want to take. The power sword probably being the strongest one out of all of them. But I enjoy the power fist as well, especially after the patch. So it really inclined me to try it out, and it is fun to use. And I actually think it has a good parry animation to it, to where parries are a little easier with the power fist. It's just that could be like a personal thing, you know, just preference thing on my part. But I felt parrying was pretty lenient with this weapon definitely compared to the power sword. So for the build, you know, you're getting into the middle of the packs. You could utilize your gunshots for getting your armor from non-executable enemies as well, and you're just really getting there and taking all of the aggro on yourself as much as you can, you know, and letting your teammates really do a lot of the damage, as you are just worried about getting armor back. That is the main thing that you are trying to do. You're just trying to get as many perfect parries as you can while you're in here, and doing damage in between your perfect parries. It's easy to get into a rhythm in this game, but it's easy to get knocked out of your rhythm too, so you just gotta keep it balanced between your parrying and your attacks, and you can usually keep your armor up pretty easily that way. And then when it comes to these power fists, their unique ability is you cannot be knocked back while you're charging up your shot. So that's also very strong for the tank build. It's another reason why I like it. Look at that perfect shock grenade that dude threw. Yeah, that shock grenade was on point. I was probably too late getting in here throwing this in here, because it probably could have done more damage, but that melted bomb is ridiculous. Pick that thing up when you can. Oh, and I forgot this guy. The boss spawned at the very end of the map. This is one of the first, I think this may be the first time on any operation that the boss spawned like during the end wave of the map. I could be mistaken, but I can't remember it happening before. So that was something different. And this will really show where this class, in general on any of the builds, where the class just struggles. And he's actually probably a little better. Definitely, yeah, because I got an ammo cache right there. He's better with the plasma pistol against the bosses. Definitely, because you can use the charge shot. So this is definitely where he struggles during these parts. There's not many people on the ground, so there's not much I can do to help my team. But you're going to just want to start looking for ground enemies that are affecting the teammates that are doing the most of the range damage. That's basically what you're going to want to do during these parts, because there's not much else you can do. You can do a little bit of damage, but you're not going to do much damage at all to this thing, especially compared to your teammates. And if they don't have to worry about the other enemies around them, it just makes things easier on the whole group. And I had some pretty good teammates this run, so it was actually really nice. And here is the last wave of enemies that's coming, so I really want to try to get them to more focus on me. I seen some of them got up that left ramp, but most of them and the heavy one came to the right. And as I was talking about earlier with the rhythms, this guy totally ends up knocking me out of my rhythm. And when somebody knocks you out of your rhythm in this game, it could really affect you through like a couple hits. Like yeah, they can get you good. I think it's, oh, where is it? Yeah, get him with that gunshot, but he hits me somewhere where it really messes up what I got going on, and then I have to, that's when I ended up utilizing my banner. In parts like this, I'm really trying to save my banner for when it is absolutely necessary, and I think, like, yeah, I'm going to die for sure. And obviously there's many different ways. Check out the banner section of this video, because there's many different ways to utilize your banner, but that's how I was using it right here. Because without that banner right there, I would have died. He had me so knocked out of my rhythm, my parries were off, my hits were, you know, my timing was just all off right there. So it happens a lot in this game that your timing can get off. So if your timing gets off like that, you know, with this class, you drop your banner, but if you're a different class, you kind of you duck and dive out of there and get straight. before you dive back into combat. And there we go. They ended up taking out the big boss while I was fighting the littler enemies, and that's, like I said, that's what you want to do when you have those bosses on the screen, unless it's like a Carnifex. You know, if it's something in the air though and it's strictly ranged, that is how you're going to want to play for sure. I like this build. Like I said, you can pair any weapon you want with it. It's very tanky. Utilize your shield a lot. I probably didn't utilize my shield enough in this section right here, but you could do a lot of you can take a lot of damage with this build and have a lot of fun with it. For a damage build, the circled perks on the screen are the required for the build. What we're basically trying to do is dish out as much as damage as possible using our shield bash to increase our damage to our enemies and other damage perks as well. Let's get straight into our first one. This is the only time we are not taking conviction, but we are taking forward momentum. After a shield bash, melee damage increases by 25% for 5 seconds. You really notice it. Hit a heavy enemy with a shield bash and then go to work with your melee weapon. Next is shock and awe. Pair it with defensive advantage. A perfectly timed parry creates a shock for 5 seconds. So then that's another 25% in your shock areas. Next up, we got advanced conditioning. Contested health fades 50% more slowly for all squad members. And then concussive force. Shield bash deals more damage. Like I said, we're gonna use all of our damage perks on this one. Invigorating icon. When the banner is activated, all squad members regain maximum contested health. And then we're gonna be greedy and not use the team revive or the squad revive, but we're going to use inspiration. So when we drop our banner, we get another 10% damage. And for this build, I really like to take defensive mastery. I think this is a slept on perk. If it was 90 seconds, it would be godlike, but either way, if you hit an extremist with a parry, a perfect parry, like one of those guys that pop out of the ground and you perfect parry him right away and you instantly kill him, it is very satisfying for sure. So you could take the shock one too. Either one of these are good, but I prefer with this build just to switch it up a little bit and have a different variety to my perks with my builds. I'm going with this one right. Some of the gameplay of the max damage build. As you can see on the top left, we are on Ruthless. On the top right, you will see the perks and the weapon that I am using for this operation right here. And let's get straight into it. This build is just all concentrating on trying to do as much damage as possible without getting yourself killed, of course. So you're going to want to utilize your shield bash when you can against your heavy enemies. And you're going to want to be switching in and out of your power swords, power stance, and speed stance, just to take advantage of the extra damage that you get from that. And with those shocks, always try to just drop them where you think the bulk of the enemies are really coming towards. That'll serve you the best. And with that enemy right there, that heavy enemy that I took out a second ago, that was because of that perk we have that you instantly execute a extremist or major enemy. So that is, I'm telling you, that's a very strong perk. Right here, I was able to hit these guys with some double shocks, keep that whole area right there shocked up. But yeah, this is a fun build. You're really just running around with your you don't have to run the power sword. I prefer it, but you can run whatever you want, and really ought to have a lot of fun with it. Oh, there were so many ranged guys right here. Forced me to pop my banner. And yeah, those shock areas do come through in the clutch a lot of the times for you. And honestly, even with this run right here, I'm not really utilizing my my shield bash enough. But just don't try to use it too much. You know, I know you're gonna want that extra 25% damage that you get from using your shield bash, but don't sit there and try to use it too much because it'll get you into more trouble than not. So just kind of use it more organically, and just basically focus it on trying to get it hit on the heavy enemies that maybe you're fighting by yourself or something, because then you can deal out a lot more damage. You get them down faster. I cannot believe how many ranged guys were over here. It was crazy. banner back up. I think we got one more wave of enemies coming through. Like I said, switching in and out of your power sword stances and all that kind of stuff is going to really keep your damage up as high as you can. It's just the power stance is very much superior, definitely, for just the AoE effects, and not to mention the perks that you get for being in power stance, like the immune to knockback and stuff like that. It's just very powerful to where you almost don't want to be out of power stance too much. But in this build, you're still utilizing that speed stance on more of your single target heavy enemies, because you really can, if you shield bash them first and you go at them with the speed, you're so fast you can do a lot of damage for the single targets. If this sword had a little more cleaving potential, I think it would be very OP. The one I got right now. I think there is one that has up to 6 cleaving potential, but I like this one with this build because of the speed on it. And there we go. One more down. Through Ruthless. Like I said, use your shield bash a lot. Get the extra 25% energy or percent damage, and utilize your power sword going in and out of the speed and power stance with it, and you will be able to have a good time on Ruthless. Now, I don't think this is the most powerful build or nothing, but it is a different build to set up. I wouldn't recommend like trying to run this build on like solo Ruthless or anything like that. Shock build is probably the best for solo Ruthless, but still a lot of fun, and I think some people will like this build. And like I said, you can do mass amounts of damage in the right opportune times. Our melee weapons go straight into the power sword, one of the best weapons in the game, and there is one perk on here that no matter what you have to take, and it is the best melee perk in the game. It is Tranquility. While in power world stance, you do not lose control upon taking heavy hits, and you cannot be knocked back. This literally makes some of your class perks irrelevant. You don't even have to take them as long as you're using a sword because of that perk right there. That is a very strong perk. Now I will go into some of the ones that I picked getting there, but definitely get to that perk for sure, 100%. Always take that one. And then we have, and I'm always using the fencing version of the weapons. It's just my preference. It makes my parrying a lot easier. And as I said before, if you take a blocking version of a weapon, remember you cannot perfect parry, so just keep that in mind. But first up, we got Armor Strength. When you have full armor, melee damage increased by 10%. Then Master of Offense. I went up with this top one right here because I wanted this one. After switching sword styles, you deal 20% more melee damage for 5 seconds. Cooldown is 10 seconds. I just think it's cool because then you just kind of jump out and switch your sword style, and then you know you're doing a little bit more damage. And then we got the extra 10% melee on those two right there. And as I said before, Tranquility. Slashing Blade power style combo increases from 3 to 4. Tyranid Slayer, extra 10% to Tyranid enemies. Kill Streak, killing 10 enemies in rapid succession with the light combo. You do not lose control upon taking heavy hits, and you cannot be knocked back for 5 seconds. Very situational on that. Power Rake deals 50% more melee damage. That is the one that I wanted on the bottom row. That is another very important one. So you're wanting to end all your combos when possible with your Power Rake, because it's doing 50% more damage, and it has distance on it too. It flies out as you use it, so it is a good attack. And then the two you're going to want to take in this wheel are the extremist level enemies increases damage by 15%, and major level enemies increases by 10%. This is a 20% one, but it's the minor enemy, so it's really not as important as grabbing these two right here, because those are the more of the enemies you will struggle with. So, as I said before, the combos are on the screen. They've been on the screen. Sorry to mention that. But this is a very good sword. You could put this in all the builds that I got here, and it's going to make that build probably better than what I'm running with it. Like, it is that powerful of a sword. It's his best melee option, but the other options are just fun as well. So we're going to discuss those too. But this is a lot of fun. For our Power Fist, it's really simple. There are two perks that I found to be very important for the build. It is heavy attack preparation time is reduced by 30%, so that is heavy preparation. And the other one is Tide of Battle. Power wave forward distance increases from 4 to 8 meters. So the whole thing is with the patch, the charge attack with this weapon got a lot stronger, so that's what you're going to want to use every chance you get. So this makes that 30% faster, and this doubles the range of the attack, making it a lot better on AoE attacks. And this weapon has like an inherent like knockback when you're hitting enemies, like heavy enemies. So before, without the extra meters added on, you weren't hitting the enemy for the second hit because they were too far back. So with this added on, you are getting all of your combo hits in, and it is a lot better. So if you haven't tried these since the patch, definitely give these a try, because they did improve a lot, and you will have a lot more fun with them. I use them on some of my builds just to have fun, and the parry animation for these things is very nice. Like, this is one of my favorite melee weapons to parry with. I can get my parries off very easy. Just the animation, I don't know if it's just me, but try it out and let me know if the parrying is easier on these gloves than normal. And last up, we're going to go into the chainsaw sword. This is a very fun weapon to use. Just I used it so much on like the Vanguard and the tactical that by the time I got here I didn't really want to use it as much, but it's still a good weapon. It's strong. It's probably top 3 in the game or something, maybe behind the hammer and the power sword. So for how I got mine set up, we have armored strength. When you have fully armor, melee damage increases by 10%. Then we have crushing heal. Enemies hit by a stomp deal 30% less damage for 4 seconds, and melee damage increases by 5%. Then we have stomp area of effect radius increases by 50%. I really wanted that stomp radius increase. I can't remember why I didn't go with this. Let's see why. Then we got chaos and Tyranid damage, 10% increases to both of them. Then we got hard target. While performing a light combo, you take 15% less range damage. Then we have trampling stride. After performing a stomp, hold the attack button to perform an additional stomp. Oh yeah, I wanted that one. And then I also wanted the melee damage against major level enemies increases by 10%. That's another one that I wanted, because I always like to get these major level enemy increases to my damage, because they are the ones that usually cause the most problems. You know, the guys with the whips, the swords, the chaos guys that are transporting all around. Those guys, you know, they're no fun to deal with, so anytime I can get extra damage to them, that is what I do. So I don't run the chainsaw sword too much on this character. I prefer to go with the power fist and the power sword, because the chainsaw sword is just abundant on a lot of characters. So, but this is what I like to run when I do, and fencing version on this as well. For secondary options, we have the bolt pistol and the plasma pistol. Personally, I prefer the bolt pistol, but I could see people going with the plasma because of the charge shot. It's very strong. It's just it runs out of ammo pretty quick, and I kind of like to soften up my enemies a lot before I get to them, and the bolt pistol allows me to do that more. So we will start with that. The 4 perks that I think you are definitely going to want is this damage increase by 10%, magazine size increase by 15%, headshot 10%, and another headshot damage for 10%. So when you're hitting them in the head, it's a 30% increase, and then just a 10% overall. The best ones that I found to get. Too bad I can't get this one. That would be nice. Alright, we'll go to the plasma pistol. So for when I run this, I always use the charge shot, so I am looking for this extra charge shot charge, which it ends up making it 40% faster, which is very noticeable, and it is very strong when you do use it that way. So if you're somebody who's really not shooting that much, like you're really not shooting at all, just take the plasma pistol, because then when you do shoot, and with this fast charge, you can just charge up and shoot them, and it does a lot of damage. You can execute heavies in like 3 headshot charges, so it is very nice too. But like I said, this is what I prefer, the bolt pistol.